Rabbi Abraham ben Meir ibn Ezra was born at Tudela, Navarre in 1089, and died c. 1167, apparently in Kalahora. He was one of the most distinguished Jewish men of letters and writers of the Middle Ages. Ibn Ezra excelled in philosophy, astronomy, astrology, mathematics, poetry, linguistics, and exegesis. He was called the Wise, the Great and the Admirable Doctor. He was born at Tudela, when the town was under the Muslim rule of the emirs of Zaragoza. Later he lived in Córdoba. In Granada, it is said, he met his future friend Yehuda Halevi. He left Spain before 1140 to escape persecution of the Jews by the new fanatical regime of the Almohads. He led a life of restless wandering, which took him to North Africa, Egypt, the land of Israel, Italy, southern France, northern France, England, and back again to Narbonne in 1161, until his death on January 23 or 28, 1167, the exact location unknown. Maybe at Calahorra at the border of Navarre and Aragon, or maybe in Rome or in the Holy Land. There is a legend that he died in England from a fever and a sickness that came upon him after an encounter with a pack of wild black dogs. This legend is attached to the belief that he denied the existence of demons. The crater Ebenezer on the Moon was named in his honor. Works. At several of the above-named places, Ibn Ezra remained for some time and developed a rich literary activity. In his native land, he had already gained the reputation of a distinguished poet and thinker, but apart from his poems, his works, which were all in the Hebrew language, were written in the second period of his life. With these works, which cover in the first instance the field of Hebrew philology and biblical exegesis, he fulfilled the great mission of making accessible to the Jews of Christian Europe the treasures of knowledge enshrined in the works written in Arabic that he had brought with him from Spain. His grammatical writings, among which Mosnaim and Zahot are the most valuable, were the first expositions of Hebrew grammar in the Hebrew language, in which the system of Judah Hage and his school prevailed. He also translated into Hebrew the two writings of Hage in which the foundations of the system were laid down. Of greater original value than the grammatical works of Ibn Ezra, his commentaries on most of the books of the Bible, of which, however, the books of Chronicles have been lost. His reputation as an intelligent and acute expounder of the Bible was founded on his commentary on the Pentateuch, of which the great popularity is evidenced by the numerous commentaries that were written upon it. In the editions of this commentary, the commentary on the Book of Exodus is replaced by a second, more complete commentary of Ibn Ezra, while the first and shorter commentary on Exodus was not printed until 1840. The great editions of the Hebrew Bible with rabbinical commentaries contained also commentaries of Ibn Ezra's on the following books of the Bible: Isaiah, Minor Prophets, Psalms, Job, Pentateuch, Daniel. The commentaries on Proverbs and Ezra and Nehemiah bearing his name are really those of Moses Kimhi. Ibn Ezra wrote a second commentary on Genesis as he had done on Exodus, but this was never finished. There are second commentaries also by him on the Song of Songs, Esther and Daniel. Ibn Ezra also wrote a commentary on the Book of Ecclesiastes. Uncharacteristically of either Ibn Ezra's other commentaries on biblical works, or of Jewish exegesis of the time, the commentary on Ecclesiastes begins with an autobiographical poem relating his life experience to the material in Ecclesiastes. Although the poem states that he fled from my home in Spain, going down to Rome with heavy spirit, this does not resolve the question of what intermediate journeys Ibn Ezra may have made before settling in Rome, possibly in the company of Yehuda Halevi. The importance of the exegesis of Ibn Ezra consists in the fact that it aims at arriving at the simple sense of the text, the Peshat, on grammatical principles. It is in this that, although he takes a great part of his exegetical material from his predecessors, the originality of his mind is everywhere apparent, an originality that displays itself also in the witty and lively language of his commentaries. influence on biblical criticism and the philosophy of religion. Ibn Ezra occupies a unique role among medieval commentators in that, on the one hand, his commentary has historically been cited by mainstream orthodoxy, but on the other hand, his reluctance to reconcile problematic biblical passages through midrashic exegesis, even at the expense of traditional dogma, put him in opposition to his contemporaries such as Rashi and provided early support for the type of textual criticism that is now accepted by Reform and conservative Judaism. For example, in his commentary, Ibn Ezra adheres to the literal sense of the texts, avoiding rabbinic allegories and Kabbalistic interpretations, though he remains faithful to the Jewish traditions. This does not prevent him from exercising an independent criticism that, according to some writers, exhibits a marked tendency toward rationalism, to the extent that he judged other biblical commentary against his twin standards of accuracy, grammatical precision and reliability. And in that regard Ibn Ezra determined that, aim notwithstanding, Rashi had successfully grasped and imparted the contextual sense but one time in 1,000. Indeed, Ibn Ezra is claimed by the proponents of the higher biblical criticism of the Pentateuch as one of its earliest pioneers. Baruch Spinoza, in concluding that Moses did not author the Pentateuch, and that the Pentateuch and other deuterocanonical books were written or redacted by Ezra and others centuries later, found precedent for these heretical views in Ibn Ezra's commentary on Deuteronomy. Specifically, in discussing Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 1, Ibn Ezra was troubled by the anomalous nature of referring to Moses as being beyond, i.e., on the other side of the Jordan, as though the writer was oriented in the land of Canaan, although Moses and the children of Israel had not yet crossed the Jordan at that point in the biblical narrative. Relating this inconsistency to others in the Pentateuch, Ibn Ezra famously stated, "If you can grasp the mystery behind the following problematic passages. 1. The final 12 verses of this book, i.e., Deuteronomy chapter 34 verses 1 to 12, describing the death of Moses. 2. Moshe wrote this song on the same day, and taught it to the children of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 22. 3. At that time, the Canaanites dwelt in the land. Genesis chapter 12 verse 6. 4. In the mountain of God, he will appear. Genesis chapter 22 verse 14. 5. Behold, his Og king of Bashan, bed is a bed of iron, is it not in Rabbah of the children of Ammon? You will understand the truth." Spinoza concluded that Ibn Ezra's hints about the truth, and other such hints scattered through Ibn Ezra's commentary in reference to seemingly anachronistic verses, as a clear indication that it was not Moses who wrote the Pentateuch but someone else who lived long after him, and that it was a different book that Moses wrote. Spinoza and later scholars were thus able to expand on several of Ibn Ezra's hints and provide much stronger evidence for non-Mosaic authorship. Nevertheless, some Orthodox writers have recently addressed one of Ibn Ezra's hints as being interpreted to be consistent with the Orthodox Jewish creed that the entire Pentateuch was divinely dictated in a word-perfect manner to Moses. Ibn Ezra's commentaries, and especially some of the longer excursuses, contain numerous contributions to the philosophy of religion. One work in particular that belongs to this province, Yesod Morah, on the division and the reasons for the biblical commandments, he wrote in 1158 for a London friend, Joseph ben Jacob. In his philosophical thought, Neoplatonic ideas prevail, and astrology also had a place in his view of the world. He also wrote various works on mathematical and astronomical subjects, among which 3 treatises on numbers which helped to bring the Indian symbols and ideas of decimal fractions to the attention of some of the learned people in Europe, in contrast to his other works, the most important of which include the Book of the Secrets of the Law, the Mystery of the Form of the Letters, the Enigma of the Quiescent Letters. They were written during his life of travel, and they reflect the unsteadiness of his outward circumstances. His mission, the wandering life of an exile, such as Ibn Ezra led for nearly 3 decades, gave him the opportunity to carry out a mission which was to an eminent degree historical. He became a propagator among the Jews of Christian Europe, who were unacquainted with Arabic, of the study of Judaism, a science that had been founded long before with that language as its literary medium. He was fitted for this mission, as no one else, through the versatility of his learning and through his clear and charming Hebrew style. The great compass of his literary activity will be seen from the following resume of his works. Biblical commentaries. His chief work is the commentary on the Torah, which, like that of Rashi, has called forth a host of super-commentaries, and which has done more than any other work to establish his reputation. It is extant both in numerous manuscripts and in printed editions. The commentary on Exodus, published in the printed editions, is a work by itself, which he finished in 1153 in southern France. The complete commentary on the Pentateuch, which, as has already been mentioned, was finished by Ibn Ezra shortly before his death, was called Sefer HaYashar. In the rabbinical editions of the Bible, the following commentaries of Ibn Ezra on biblical books are likewise printed: Isaiah, the 12 minor prophets, Psalms, Job, the Megillot, Daniel. The commentaries on Proverbs and Ezra Nehemiah bearing Ibn Ezra's name are by Moses Kimhi. Another commentary on Proverbs, published in 1881 by Driver and in 1884 by Horowitz, is also erroneously ascribed to Ibn Ezra. Additional commentaries by Ibn Ezra to the following books are extant: Song of Solomon, Esther, Daniel. He also probably wrote commentaries to a part of the remaining books, as may be concluded from his own references. Hebrew grammar. Mosnaim, chiefly an explanation of the terms used in Hebrew grammar. As early as 1148 it was incorporated by Judah had-Rc in his Eshkol HaKofa, with no mention of Ibn Ezra, 1st ed. In 1546. The most recent edition is Sefer Mosnaim, Introduction, Edition Critica del Texto Hebrew y version Castellana de Lorenzo Jimenez Patton, Revisada, Completada y Reelaborada por Angel Science Badillos, Córdoba. Ediciones El Almendro, 2002. Translation of the work of Hage into Hebrew, Sefer HaYesod, or Yesod Dikduk. It has been published by N. Alani, Yesod Dikduk, Jerusalem. Mossad HaRav Kook, 1984. Zarkot, on linguistic correctness, his best grammatical work, which also contains a brief outline of modern Hebrew meter, 1st ed. 1546. There is a critical edition by C. Del Valle, Sefer Sahot, Salamanca, Univ, Pontificia de Salamanca, 1977. Sofar Berura, 1st ed. 1830. A critical edition has been recently published. Afah Berura, La Lengua Escogida. Introduction. Edition Critica del Texto Hebrew y version Castellana de Enrique Ruiz González, Revisada, Completada y Reelaborada por Angel Science Badillos, Córdoba. Ediciones El Almendro, 2004. A short outline of grammar at the beginning of the unfinished commentary on Genesis. The importance of Ibn Ezra's grammatical writings has already been treated in Grammar, Hebrew, a defense of Saadia Gaon against Adornim's criticisms. Sefer Haganah, Allah, Saadia Gaon, ed. I. OSRI, Bar-Ilan University, 1988. Smaller works, partly grammatical, partly exegetical. Sefer Yeta, in defense of Saadia Gaon against Danish ben Labrat, whose criticism of Saadia Ibn Ezra had brought with him from Egypt, published by Bilux 1838 and Lippmann 1843. Sefer Hashem, ed. Lippmann, 1834. Yesod Maspah, a small monograph on numerals, ed. Pinsker, 1863, at the end of his book on the Babylonian Hebrew system of punctuation. Igrat Shabbat, a responsum on the Sabbath, dated 1158, ed. Luzzatto, in Karim Hemad, IV. 158 ASEQ. Religious Philosophy Yesid Mora Vesed HaTorah, on the Division of and Reasons for the Biblical Commandments, 1st ed. 1529. Mathematics and Astronomy Sefer HaEchad, on the Peculiarities of the Numbers, chapters 1 to 9. Sefer HaMaspar or Yesod Maspar, Arithmetic. Lukot, Astronomical Tables. Sefer HaIber, on the Calendar. Kelly HaNekoshet, on the Astrolabe. Shalosh Shilot, in answer to 3 chronological questions of David Narbonai. Astrology. Ibn Ezra composed his first book on astrology in Italy, before his move to France. Mishpetai HaMazlot, on the general principles of astrology. In 7 books written in Beziers in 1147 to 1148, Ibn Ezra then composed a systematic presentation of astrology, starting with an introduction and a book on general principles, and then 5 books on particular branches of the subject. The presentation appears to have been planned as an integrated whole, with cross-references throughout, including references to subsequent books in the future tense. Each of the books is known in 2 versions, so it seems that at some point Ibn Ezra also created a revised edition of the series. Reshit Hokmah, an introduction to astrology, perhaps a revision of his earlier book, Sefer HaTiyamim, an overview of Arabic astrology, giving explanations for the material in the previous book. Sefer HaMaladot, on astrology based on the time and place of birth. Sefer HaMa'orit, on medical astrology. Sefer HaShilot, on questions about particular events. Sefer HaMivarim, on optimum days for particular activities. Sefer HaOlim, on the fates of countries and wars, and other larger-scale issues. Translation of 2 works by the astrologer Mashallah ibn Athara, Shilot, and Kadrut. Selah, Shlomo, ed. Trans. Abraham ibn Ezra, The Book of Reasons. A parallel Hebrew-English critical edition of the 2 versions of the text. Leiden. Brill, 2007. As poet there are a great many other poems by Ibn Ezra, some of them religious and some secular, about love, friendship, wine, didactic or satirical, as his friend Yehuda Halevi used the Arabic poetic form of Muwashshah. Legacy. Robert Browning's poem Rabbi Ben Ezra, beginning, "Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be," a meditation on Ibn Ezra's life and work, appeared in Browning's Dramatis Personae, in 1864. In turn, Rabbi Ben Ezra has been used in various ways. Isaac Asimov's short novel, Grow Old With Me, was expanded into the novel Pebble in the Sky, which quotes Rabbi Ben Ezra. The second line of Rabbi Ben Ezra, "The best is yet to be," is a motto of the Anglo-Chinese schools in Singapore and Jakarta. John Lennon adapts part of Rabbi Ben Ezra in Grow Old With Me. Browning's poem, Rabbi Ben Ezra, is also cited in the Twilight Zone episode, The Trade-Ins.